All right.
Masechet Gittin Daf Elmaleh Amud Aleph 41a. We were just speaking about in the Mishnah the entire concept that the master made his slave into a lien, and then what happened was he freed him. So because of Tikkun HaOlam, right? That basically since the first master freed him, but the second master is going to find him in the street and say, you're Avdiata, you're my slave. So they force a second master, Kofinet Rabo Shani, to make him into a Ben Chorin, to make him into a free man, and therefore so then the slave is going to write to the second master Ashtar al Damav, right? A document that basically he has to come and he has to actually pay it back, and that's what it says in the footnote, that basically he would have to pay back the money immediately if he had the money, but if not, so then he's going to be obligated to pay him back. Okay. Now he says, Rabban Shimon Gamliel Omer. Shimon Gamliel comes and he says, "En ha'eved kotev, ela meshachrer kotev." He says, no, I disagree. Rashbag, Rabban Shimon Gamliel says, the Eved does not have to write anything. It's only the Meshachrer, which is the Loveh, he has to write it. Right? Why? Because, right, who's the one that has to do it? The Loveh, the borrower. Because he was the one that made this Hezek. He was the one that did it. Meaning, this same guy that's borrowing the money, he's a troublemaker. First, he borrows money. He doesn't pay it back. He makes a lien. And then he frees the lien. He's the one that has to write it, not anybody else. Like, what's going on here? So says the Gemara, what is the machloket exactly between the Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? He says, "B'mazik shi'abudo shel chavero kamipalgeh." If I'm going to damage a shi'abud of my friend, right? More savar chayav. Rabbi Shimon holds that you're going to be chayav, right? And more savar Tanakama holds you're going to be patur. I'll give you an example, right? I right now borrowed money from Richard. He wants a collateral. I tell him, listen, this, whatever it is, this item, this could be a phone, it could be a watch, is the lien. Comes Mordechai, and he damages the phone. Okay, so what did he damage? He damaged the lien, which belongs to Richard. Now the question is, what happens now if I don't pay Richard? So now Richard gets a lien, right? He gets the phone, but it was already damaged. So what happens with Mordechai now? Does Mordechai... So it says over here, Rabban Shimon Gamliel holds that the loveh is obligated to pay the malveh, the value of the eved, right? Because basically he damaged Richard. But by freeing the slave, he completely damaged Richard, right? Because now there's nothing left anymore. I completely destroyed the value. There's nothing left. But according to Tanakama, he's going to be patur. Okay? So Itmar Nami was also stated, a mazik shivdot shel chavero, is a machloket of Shem Gamliel v'Rabbanan. It's actually a machloket between them. Ulamar, right? So one second, until you have everything clear, meaning what are we saying? We're just saying basically that what happened was that the machloket between them is that if you're damaging the lien that belongs to the friend, right? And at the end of the day, what's happening now is that when it's coming back to Richard, he's getting something damaged or nothing because the value is already, there's no value to it. So, right, who has to pay for that? Is it the one that damaged it or is he patur? Because at the end of the day, I didn't actually damage it. It was indirectly, exactly. It was like something indirect. It was like a grammar. Okay? Now we put a pause. Why do we put a pause? Now we're going to explain the Mishnah differently. Okay? This is a different explanation of the Mishnah. We have the Mishnah. What was the Mishnah? I borrowed money from Richard. I had to give him a lien. I had to give him a collateral. What was the collateral? My slave. And then it says in the Mishnah, he freed him. So we said, who was the explanation he freed him? The first master. Says the Ula comes and he says, Mi shichrero, who was the one that freed him? Rabbo Shani, the second master. The second master was the one that freed him. Shurat adin enev chayav klum mitzvot. So now it comes out that really behemet, right, he's not chayav anything in mitzvot, ela ba'avadim. Why? Because he's not really free, right? The reason why is because until he doesn't collect him, he's not free. Meaning like this, imagine right now, the same case, again, one more time. I borrow money from Richard. I have a slave. My slave is the collateral. Richard comes and he frees my slave. Is he chayav in all the mitzvot? No. You know why? Because I still didn't come and pay back Richard. If I come and I tell Richard, listen, I'm not paying back at all. And now Richard collects the collateral. Now he could become free. Because when Richard collected the collateral, which was the slave, he already freed the slave. So now it comes out. But until Richard doesn't take my slave, that slave is still under my jurisdiction. You're right, I didn't pay back Richard yet, but it doesn't matter. But the slave is still in my jurisdiction. So why in the world would the slave be free from mitzvot? But because of tikkun haolam, because it already came out a name on him that he's a free man, we're going to force the first master to come and to free him, right? Because he's the real master. And now he's going to write a document to pay him back. And here was the exact opposite. Here, the slave is going to be, meaning the first master is going to be forced to free the slave. But now that he's writing him because of tikkun haolam, the document to free him, the slave has to write a document that he's going to pay the master, the first master, on the money. Says Rashbag, Rabbi Shimon comes and he says, Eno kotev, ela meshachrer kotev. The slave doesn't have to write anything. You know who has to write the document that he owes the money? The lender, Richard, because Richard was the one that freed him, right? Which means, okay, so here it says that he has to write the difference of the price, because obviously it wasn't the exact same value. He's the one who
didn't have clean hands.
Exactly. He was the one that caused the loss, so he's the one that has to come and pay, but there was a difference in value. Because until now we were pretending that Kilu it's exact, because if not, so just it should cancel all the debt. One more time. If I come and I owe you $100, I tell you my slave is $100, he's the lien. Richard comes and he frees my slave, and now according to Rashbag, he says that Richard has to pay me those $100 to just cancel the debt. We didn't say that, because Richard has to pay me the difference of the value of the slave and the debt. That's what he's explaining here. So, what is the difference? What is the machloka between them exactly? With a damage which is not recognizable. More savar shmei hezek. One of them holds, which is Rashbag holds, that it's still considered hezek, right? More savar and Tanakama holds hezek shenoka lo shmei hezek. It's not hezek. What does that mean? I'm going to ask you a question. Yeah, and this is, by the way, where do you see this? By the way, this is a very famous concept, right? Imagine right now nezek, damage, which is not recognizable. I damaged you, but it's not recognizable. Am I obligated to pay you or not? So here it says it's actually a machloket between who? Between Rashbag and Tanakama. Rashbag holds hezek shenu nikar, it's still considered hezek. And according to, right, the next one, right, which is going to be the Tanakama, it's not going to be hezek. So the footnote actually comes and he says like this: there's different, we're going to say different different levels, right, of nezek shenu nikar. The Gemara is going to speak about it later on, Gimel Amud Aleph and Bet, to do with, for example, let's say I come and I make your truma tameh, or I made your wine yain nesech. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it's not considered nezek min Torah, and that's halacha, right? Why? Because when I look at the wine, do I see anything different in the wine? Right? It looks like the exact same wine. If I'm going to show it to you, if you didn't know what happened, ridiculous. It looks like the same thing. Believe it, right? So, however, though, right here, the malva is coming and making it prohibited for him to take it. So basically, it's like considered a little bit more nikar, right? And therefore, maybe according to this, it could be there's a machlok between them, right? But there's other ones as well, right? Whether it's going to be other things as well. I once heard, I don't remember when, but I once heard that maybe one of the things is ainara. I gave you an ainara, and now all of a sudden something broke. Can you take me to Betin?
No, I know.
Right? Why? Did you see me punch something? Did you see me break something? It's true. I give you a big ayin al. As like I give you a. Meaning, but at the end of the day, it's or the other case that we just mentioned here. It's not recognizable. It's not recognizable. I'm going to ask you a question. Right? Think it over though very well. If I'm driving by your car, Richard, and I knock the side mirror, right? But I come, right? I check the side mirror, and you don't say to me. Or maybe if you take a microscope, maybe you could probably see something. Yeah, you don't really, mamash. Is that considered that I really damaged you? You're going to come, you're going to say, you damaged it. Why did you damage it? Maybe you're going to tell me there's something internal. Maybe you're going to tell me it was, but you're looking at it. You don't really see any, you don't really see anything there. You understand? To the naked eye, maybe if you're going to come, you're going to start opening there, 20 there, maybe you might find something, maybe. But it could be that maybe there's nothing there. You understand? So the same thing. Okay? So, right, that's the question. So he comes and he says over here, okay, by the way, the same thing could happen to do with damaging. For example, I'll give you an example that actually happened to me, right? My car, the old one, got into an accident, right? It was the other person's fault, right? They basically backed out of a driveway, right, in the wrong lane. And my wife it was on a turn, so my wife's turning, and all of a sudden the guy backs up. It was a head-on collision. But like she's like, oh, what's going on? Boom, she's just right there in the wrong lane. So what happened was they had to pay for it. So they come and they pay the damages. Right? It was a lot of damages, right? They paid for it.
Guess what? When you go to sell the car,
when you go to sell the car, right, the value is lower. But one second, but if you look at the car, and their insurance also goes up, right? And the insurance, what?
There's a loan for them.
The what? Right? Ula. So now this happens many times in the Gemara, that if I'm going to explain the Mishnah in one way, you're going to explain it the other way. So the Gemara is going to ask, why did you not say like A? Why did A not say like B? And why did B not say like A? So Ula, why doesn't he say like Rav? Amalecha, he says, Sheni Rabbo Karile. He says, the lender, right? Are you going to call him now his master? He's not his master. What is Kofinet Rabbo? Right? What is a Rabbo? Rabbo has to be the first master. Right? Not the second master. The second master is not his master yet. Why are you calling him his master? The Rav Maitama lo makruah. So why does Rav not hold like Ula? Amar lecha, he says, Sheni meshachrer karile. He says, are you calling it meshachrer? It's not meshachrer, right? Can Richard free my slave if it's not his slave? So therefore, what are you talking about? It cannot be the second person's freeing him because he's not freeing him. It doesn't belong to him to free him. What does it mean to live there? So because of that, each one did not want to say, right, the other explanation. So one of them saying the first master, second master, because each one has something of a terminology which just doesn't make sense. Okay? Next, Itman, it was stated. Imagine right now, you come and you make your field into a lien to other people, and all of a sudden, boom, it got destroyed, your field. Right? The river comes over, destroys the entire field, right? So what happens? Ami Shapir Nae, right? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Ami, the handsome one, came and he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, right? Eno gove mishar nechasim. You cannot collect from any other properties. Vavod Shmuel Amar, and the father of Shmuel says, no, gove mishar, you could collect. Meaning, I designated you this field, and this field got ruined. Machloke between Rabbi Yochanan, right, and Shmuel, the father of Shmuel. Can you collect from other fields or not? That's a machloka between them. Okay? Now, you have to remember that there's actually two different types of aputikis, by the way. Aputiki stam, which is basically that you're coming and you're just saying that, okay, there's going to be a certain type of a property or a certain type of an object. And aputiki mifurash means, right, that you're coming and you're actually saying that you cannot exclusively this, only this, and not anything else. Okay? So there's two different types. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak mishum de'ami, right, de'ami Shapirnai who omer shmaita de la Shapira, says, I don't understand you. Because he's so handsome, he's saying things which are not handsome? Meaning, because he's so handsome, he's saying things which are not good? What does that mean? Why wouldn't he actually come and collect from something else? So to targem shemate, you have to say, he said, so you have to explain that it was only exclusively from this one. Because if not, it doesn't make sense. If I come in and say, you're going to take it from the property, so now it's any property that he has. If you said only this property, that's something else. But if it wasn't exclusive, why in the world wouldn't you collect from anything else? You do collect from other properties. But if he said that you could only collect this one, you cannot collect from other properties. We learned in another braita. If you make your field into a loan, again, it's not exclusively. The balchov liktuvat isha, whether it's to balchov, which means a lender, or for a ketubah of a woman, you do come and you collect from other properties. Shmuel says balchov does collect from other properties. A woman does not collect from other properties. He says the reason why is because, right, the woman does not go to batei dinim. What does that mean? If the sale is going to help, right, to force her to collect from these properties that they didn't sell, so if the husband's going to sell all the properties one after another to certain people, right? She could only collect it from the last person because her shi'abud is pushed off to the last property. So if there's going to be a safek, so then okay, then you go to the last one. But right, it's not normal that a woman is going to come and start, going from one. So therefore, when he comes and he designates for a piece of property in order that she doesn't have to go to other properties, but she's not going to start going to one bedin to another. Women don't come and start doing the
Look at the big Tosfos.
Okay,
explain
100%. Okay, Mishnah. The Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. Misha chetzio avev chetzio ben chorim. Imagine a person is half a slave and half a free man. Ovedet rabo yom echad v'tetzum yom echad. So he has to work one day and one day he's free. So one day he works, one day free. One day he works, one day he's free. Divre Bet Hillel. These are the words of Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai comes in and he says, Tikantem et rabo. Right? This arrangement only helped his master because now he's one day working, one day free, one day working, but you didn't fix him because why? He can't get married to a maid servant because he's still because he's a half man, a free man. 41b. But Chorin also he can't get married to a Bat Chorin because he's still an Eved. Yibatel. Why? He's not going to get married. He's got a mitzvah. Right? Which means that Kadosh Baruch Hu did not create the world, right? Only to multiply in the world. Okay? So here they actually, Tosfot is going to ask, why are you bringing this pasuk of Loto V'Ra'ah? It should have brought you the pasuk of Pidya V'Rivya, Peru Vu, which is actually a bigger obligation, right? But fine. So he comes and he says, Ela mipnei tikkun ha'olam, but because of tikkun ha'olam, in order that you should have children, we're going to force the master to free him, and then the slave will have to write a document that he owes the master half of his value, which was the value that the owner had, and therefore he's going to pay him back. And after they heard Tana Bet Shammai, they said, you know what? We agree to.
What was Shammai's position?
Which one?
What did Shammai say?
Bet Shammai were the ones that said that you only fixed the master but not fixed him. So you have to free him. That was Bet Shammai. Bet Hillel said, this is what you do. Work one day, free one day. Work one day, free one day. One more time. One more time.
I guess I lost what we were.
Says the Gemara, we learned in the Braita, if a person comes and he frees half of his slave, Rabbi says, Kana, he acquires himself. Chachamim say, look, Kana, he doesn't acquire himself. Meaning, freeing half a slave doesn't help. Some Rabba comes and he says, the machloket between Rabbi and Rabbanan is bishtar, is with a document. The Rabbi Savar, as Rabbi holds, ve'oftelo nifdata, o chufsha, right? Chufsha, yeah? Lo nitala. Yeah? What does that mean? Ve'ofde. When it speaks about ofde, and we're talking about chufsha, makish shtar lekesef. There's a hekesh, juxtaposition, proximity, between shtar and kesef. Ma kesef, just like money, ben kulo ben chatzio, you could redeem half of yourself with money. So to the shtar, of shtar nami, ben kulo ben chatzio. For Rabbanan, but the rabbis, gamni, they learn it, la misha. You remember we said that there was the katav la sefer kritut, and it says, right, la. Since it says la, right? So therefore it's a gzera shava that we're learning that the slave from the woman. Just like a woman, you can't give a woman a get on half. You can't tell a woman you're half free. You sleep by me one night, and the next night you could sleep with whoever you want. It doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. It's either free or not free. Yeah? So what happens? So he comes and he says, "Ma yisha chetzia lo, afebed nami lo chetzia lo." Aval bekesef, but to do with money, divrei hakol. According to everybody, kana. According to everybody, you're going to acquire it. Why? It says in the pasuk, "Be'ofdelo niftata peduya ve'ena peduya," which means you could be half freed and half not free. So says the Gemara, Lema baka mipalge. Why don't we just say that the machloket between them is the more savar ekesh adipa, more savar gzera shava adipa. What's better, a kesh or gzera shava? The second one, which is Rabbanan Chachamim, they learned the gzera shava. The Chachamim learned the gzera shava, but they learned it from the woman. So just like the woman, it doesn't exist half. So too by the shtar, by them, it doesn't exist half. But the first one, which is Rebbe, he was learning a kesh. The kesh that just like the money works half, So to a star works half. This is in the same pasuk. Just like oftelo niftata, we're talking about the concept of money and shtar. So why don't we just say that's a machloket between them, Rabbi and Chachamim? Answers the Gemara, no, that's not a machloket. Dechule alma, according to everybody, gizera shava is adifa. According to everybody, gizera shava is better. Why? Remember, gizera shava you have to learn from your rabbi. Exactly, it's much more chazak. It's much stronger. The shani hacha, but it's different over here. The ikal mifrach, they have a question against it. What's the question that you have against it? Ma leisha shekeren yotza bekesef, tomar be'eved sheyotze bekesef. 1 second, I'm going to ask you a question. If the slave comes and he pays his master to be free, can he do that? Yeah, he could buy himself out from his master. Can a woman come and buy herself out from the husband? Say, listen, honey, right? When you got married to me, right? You gave me whatever it was. You know, you gave me a ring that was worth $2. Here's $2. I'm buying myself out. Does it happen? היא יכולה לעשות זה או לא? היא יכולה לקנות את עצמה בחוץ?
יכולה בדרכים אחרות.
So not exactly a good comparison.
Yeah, it doesn't work. So because of that question, they say that they don't like it. But Rav Yosef comes and he says, no. The machloket is bekesef. The machloket is to do the money. The Rebbe Sarabas Rebbe holds right, which means that she's going to be meshucheret lechatzayin alidei piyat chetzi kesef. She's going to be freed by half of the money. When the rabbis hold dibra Torah kileshon bnei adam, that the Torah sometimes comes and uses a double language of ve'ofdelo niftata or things like that. Aval b'shtar, but according to everybody, right? Divrei hakol lo kana. Meaning, like, now we're flipping it. Before we said by money, everybody agrees that you could pay off half and get rid of yourself half of it, of a slave. Machlok, it was by shtar. Now we're saying the exact opposite. The machloket is by money, which means that according to Rabbi, he could buy himself out half. According to the rabbi, no. It says ve'oftelo niftata. He said no. There, it's like the Torah speaks, Shirley's, right? You know what the Shirley is? In kano kana, right? In kano, meaning it uses a double language, a double expression. So many times in the English, they come and they say, if you should surely do this, right? It says, no. Right? Sometimes the Torah will use a double language in kano kana, hofdelo niftata, meaning like they'll use a language of, like a double expression, buy. You're going to buy it, right? Things like that. The Torah, sometimes the Torah will speak like that, but it's not coming to teach you that you could buy half or not buy half. In money, says the rabbis, it doesn't help. In shtar, according to everybody, it doesn't help. So we flipped it. So so we're going to ask the following question. If you're going to free your slave half in the shtar, meaning you come and you wrote a shtar, half my slave is free. Rabbi says you're going to acquire it. Chachamim say you're not going to acquire it. So tiyufta de Rav Yosef, there's a proof against Rav Yosef. No, אתה לא מוכר אותו, משחרר אותו.
מוכר אותו בחצי? מה, שבוע אתה עובד אצלי שבוע לא?
Yeah, you're half free. So it's day. יום אחד by me, יום אחד free. יום אחד by me, off day. It's a day, one off day, like that. Okay? Why is this a tiyufta against Rav Yosef? Because Rav Yosef said that in shtar, it was lechule alma, according to everybody, that what? That it doesn't work. Here is saying mefurash that it does work, according to Rabbi. So this is a tiyufta against Rav Yosef. Okay? B'shtaru depli. So really, we have to say that really, they're arguing in shtar. But b'kesef, there's no machloket. So levat have a tiyufta, Rav Yosef v'tapta. So then it comes out of machloket, it comes out a tiyufta against Rav Yosef in both of them. Right? Why? Because to do it that he says that it doesn't help with shtar, it was incorrect. And to do with the concept that by money, it was a machloket, it also is that's not correct. So Yosef is going to tell you, no, it's a machloket in both. He says, so why are they arguing in shtar? To teach you the koach of Rabbi. But really, it's a machloket in both. Okay, in both of them. So ask the Gemara, why don't we tell you that the machloket is also going to be in money? And to teach you the koach of the Rabbanan, that they say that you cannot do it. Answers the Gemara, koach the teira adif. It's always better to teach you a heter than to teach you an isur. There's no chidush to say something is asur. You can say everything is asur. The chidush is to say something is mutar. That's a chidush. Not that everything is asur. That something is mutar. Okay? So he says, Tashma, we're going to try to bring a proof. We're trying to bring a proof from shivcha charufa. Right? Shivcha charufa means a woman that she's designated to a certain person. It says ve'ofdeh. What does it mean ofdeh? Of there, I would have thought to say that this means to everybody, Tamulumar lo niftata. What does it mean lo niftata? She's not completely free. So lo niftata, I would thought that, so she's not redeemed at all. Tamulumar ve'ofte. How could it be? Peduya ve'no peduya, be'kesef uv'shaveh kesef. What does that mean? She is freed. She's freed halfway. But how? The kesef uv'shaveh kesef. Anything which is done through kesef or shaveh kesef. Shaveh kesef means a value of money. Meaning she doesn't even have to give money. She could give an item. Imagine she right now came and she got an item or whatever it is. She gives that item to the master. She says, look, this is value. This is money. I'm freeing myself for half of it. How do we know by Bishtar? Just like over there by Seva Kritut, it's with the document. So 2 years it's going to be Bishtar. So
hold on a second, you're going very fast.
He says this is only going to be, or if it's going to be half in money or full in a document. How does you know that in a half in a document that it helps? So he comes and he says, right? He says, Tamulomar ve'ofte lo niftata o chufsha lo nitan la maki shtar lekesef. So it's a kesh, shtar to kesef. Ma kesef ben kulo ben chetzio, av shtar nami ben kulo ben chetzio, which means like this. Now we're making a kesh that just like by money she could acquire half of herself, so too by shtar she could acquire half of herself. So Bishlam Rav Yosef, I understand according to Rav Yosef Batardi Tutuk that after he was asked, meaning that they refuted him, Hamani, who is this then? It's Rabbi. It's according to Rabbi, right? Why? Because he holds that it does help to free up a woman, free up a slave half, whether it's by shtar or by kesef. But according to the rabbis, that they say it doesn't help. Ela l'Rabba, Reisha is according to everybody, and the Seifa that it does help to free somebody of a half with money, and then the Seifa is going according to Rabbi that it does not help. What's going on exactly? Amar lecha Rabba, Rabba is going to answer you in yes. Reisha divra kol. Sometimes it does happen, but Reisha, the former part of the Mishnah, is according to all the opinions, and the latter part of the Mishnah is only going according to right Rabbi. Okay, Ravashi comes and he says, no, I don't think so. Rabbi, the entire Mishnah, the entire Braita is Rabbi, even the Reisha, right? Which means everything, right? Was that? That means even though, right, it's going to be agreeing to everything, but it was only going to Rabbi. Meaning, I prefer to say that the entire Mishnah is going to Rabbi, even though you're right that the Reisha could be like according to everybody, but I just prefer to say that the entire thing is Rabbi, and that's it, and I'm out of the problem. Okay, fine. But our Mishnah. But the Mishnah said, somebody that's half a slave and half ben chorin. I understand according to Rabba. Yeah, he comes and he says, right? He comes and he says, our Mishnah said somebody that's half eved and half chorin. One second. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Our Mishnah was talking about somebody that's half-half. How did he become half-half?
Money.
So I understand according to Rabba, it was with money, and according to everybody. Because according to Rabba, money, it helps that he could free himself with money. But according to Rav Yosef, that there's a machloket, whether in money or whether it's going to be in a document, why don't we just say that this is Rebbe and not Rabbanan? So that means our Mishnah is only in accordance to Rebbe. It's not going to Rabbanan. So Ravina says, no, what happened was it belonged to two different owners. And therefore it's according to everybody. Which means even the rabbis agree that it does help to free half of a slave if there's two different owners. If there was one owner, then you can't do that because you're only freeing half. What's going? It's all or none. But if there's two different owners and I own 50%, right, and the doctor owns 50%, according to everybody, one of us could free up our full 50% because it's our full portion, and there's no problem whatsoever. Okay, fine.
One more.
Yeah. The little